Hello and welcome to ETAutoSmartFactory Virtual Summit, bringing continuity in crisis. I'm Nabil Khan. Since the pandemic has struck us, we are talking about optimum number of crises and volatility, unpredictability. Let's put that aside for a while and think about the new possibilities and new beginning that probably new normal is going to bring about. Can we think about work from home to move to manufacture from home? To answer some of these questions and give you more insight on how the smart manufacturing is going to be. How can we reimagine the smart manufacturing in India? To answer this, who could be better person than a person who has led India's largest passenger vehicle manufacturing for over decades? The person who rolls out, who is responsible to roll out one car every 9 minutes. Yes, I'm talking about Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, who was former Senior Executive Director at Maruti Suzuki India Limited and also Head of Manufacturing and also Member of Board at Maruti Suzuki Limited. Welcome to ETAutoSmartFactory, sir.
Thank you, Nabil. Thank you for the kind introduction. And a very good morning to all my dear friends from the industry. And thanks to Economic Times to have called me for this very interesting session. Well, friends, you would all agree, and as Nabil has rightly said, the last 5 months have been one of the most disruptive and challenging ever to be faced by the industry. And as he said, it's the real VUCA times that we have faced. And more specifically, I think this was faced by the manufacturing industry. But I'm sure this would have triggered us all to introspect and now work more aggressively towards this journey of digitization. Friends, historically, manufacturing has always been the backbone of all developed and developing nations. This is where research and development starts, where new technologies are born, where scientists and engineers are challenged to develop new and better products, processes, and technologies. It touches the lives of people directly, and it is said that the level of maturity of this sector is a true barometer of the level of development of any nation. Underlying all industrial revolutions, I think from the first until today's fourth, is a process of continuous price reductions, enabled by productivity gains, product and process innovations, and all of them ultimately resulting in improved value proposition for the customers. Each industrial revolution has touched and changed the way people work in manufacturing. So the degree of difficulty of jobs has seen a major transition. With the advent of automation, we have been able to delegate the physically taxing jobs to our machines and mechanisms and create new opportunities for our workforce. At Maruti, we are doing automations on the principles of 3Ds. That is, jobs that are dirty, dangerous, or difficult to do. For the last 10 years, our focus has been primarily to eliminate jobs that involve bending, heavy load picking, awkward body postures where even approachability is tough, and also the environmentally unfriendly processes. This is where automation has served as a boon. The talent and creativity of our people has been the biggest contributor in this area. And now, as you can see, the latest change that manufacturing is witnessing is connecting our hardware with the software and putting everything online. That is making our factories smart. The smart factory represents a leap forward from a more traditional automation to a fully connected and flexible system. A smart factory is based on the principles of interactions. It's an integrated network of systems, assets, and humans. These connections generate data. Decisions that used to be driven either by experience or gut and were extensively dependent on instinct can now be made accurately based on actual parameters obtained from the data collected from these technologies. And I think it's a clear transition from gut to logic. The clarity of what is happening exactly right now the power to predict what can happen in future, and of course, the timely preventive actions so as to always keep our processes robust and efficient makes this technology much more interesting and lucrative. The game-changing tools around data analytics, artificial intelligence, advanced robotics, augmented reality, and others promise great benefits when they are all combined with the IoT or the Internet of Things. Imagining this change itself is so exciting. Dreams still a few years back are now turning into a reality. Data-driven decision-making is finding its way into the manufacturing processes. It is a journey that can drive growth to levels not achievable under conventional business models and strategies. And I'm sure this is going to be an exciting and challenging journey. I mean, just imagine a scenario where our assembly conveyor is able to read the production plan directly from the vehicle tracking system, and that is directly linked to the ever dynamic changing sales requirement. And based on that, it automatically, the conveyor adjusts its speed, its stack time. The work content gets automatically redistributed amongst operators. The work instruction sheets dynamically gets modified in a most efficient manner, eliminating all the process wastages that are there. And finally, the digital copy of the revised work instruction sheet is available to each operator in an iPad screen. Similarly, can you imagine that the ordering of parts to tier 1 and tier 2 vendors are automatically driven by real-time inventories in the shop floors, thereby making the whole value chain much more lean and efficient? Can you imagine having 100% traceability of components right down to the batch, the vendor, the vehicle ID, the operator ID, all linked in one thread, and this getting further backward integrated to the tier 1 and tier 2 processes as well? I think such robust traceabilities can save billions of dollars in the vehicle recall costs that are announced from time to time by major autos companies. Don't you think all this would make our lives much easier? As Nabil said, can we sit at home and drive our plants? Would make our processes much more reliable and robust as well, especially in an age when we are moving towards much more customizations, leading to higher and higher number of variants in our products. You'd be interested to know, even today, our typical assembly line in Maruti makes more than 100 variants. So I think this smart transition is extremely desired for catering to the smart customers now. This journey of transformation has started. We have most of our equipment talking to the master servers. The critical performance parameter data is being captured. And I think I would say that we have reached about the 50% mark in this journey, but we still have a long, long way to go. But I feel this whole journey of transformation towards being smart in Indian manufacturing depends on three very critical parameters. I would like to touch upon them one by one. The first among them being the commitment of the top management or the leader to change and create a buy-in of people for this change. So I'm speaking from my experience, so it's a change that we are going to witness, and change, believe me, it hurts initially. The life cycle of this change, I would say, is very critical. Making people part of this change defines 90% of our success factor. I think to become smart, we need to adopt a top-down, bottom-up approach, which is led by change champions. Industry leaders have to own up this initiative and involve people in this journey right from the word go. How we involve the young and align the experienced to drive this change will remain very critical. My experience of over 35 years in the auto industry says that the contribution by each and every individual, each and every employee gives us the real improvement. I mean, there is a proverb which says, little by little, but this little finally becomes a lot. So just to share my personal experience at Maruti, where we have successfully taken up various improvement drives in our plants. I remember about a decade back, we were given a challenge 50 drive. That means improving our productivity and quality parameters by 50% over a 3-year period. Thereafter, we took a drive of 1 component, 1 gram reduction, or the safety risk assessment drives. Various such initiatives we have taken. And my experience shows that these initiatives work only with 100% alignment and involvement of people. Considering the length and breadth of our operations, all the unit heads, they slice the targets at the right down to the area level, to the person level. Keeping regular reviews and constantly motivating and encouraging the employees is very crucial in this whole journey. And very soon you will realize that this turns into a people movement, and the momentum then carries on and soon becomes a mindset change. And the best part about this whole journey and the change is that since this was done by the people in their own areas, there is a sense of ownership, which ensures sustainability of these improvements. The second critical aspect in this journey is that, especially the Industry 4.0 journey, is that it needs manufacturers and service providers to come together to collaborate. Smart manufacturing needs technical and non-technical masters coming together. Making our systems smart would mean processing our data to give critical insights so that relevant decisions could be made. We need the best of breed experts in the areas of hardware, software, analytics, security. These experts have to all come together in the form of strong technical collaborations to propel and drive IoT dream in India manufacturing. From manufacturing, we can tell what needs to be connected, what needs to be collected. From technology side, strong support is needed to capture, store, and compress the data. Here, the role of technology provider is very important. We need to ensure that machine communicates with our network at all times. And I think the most important role of this service provider is to turn this data into wisdom. Otherwise, it's likely to create a paralysis of analysis. So the analytics layer has to be built. And I'm sure with this strong partnership, we can realize our dream of smart manufacturing really fast. Now, the third critical aspect in this, last but not the least, is the availability and capability of people in manufacturing. IoT has created a new horizon. Whatever you can think, it is possible to see it happening now. But the question is designing the smart systems and the products. That is the quality of the input, the quality of the output. And both are dependent on people. We need to start working on attracting talent in manufacturing and upskilling the existing manpower. Without a doubt, we are capable of imbibing this change and becoming smart quickly. Indians are blessed with good analytical skills. I think I can see it especially in the young generation today. Right inputs at an early stage can actually provide Indian manufacturing that early advantage. Collaborations with educational institutions for short-term and long-term courses will again be very critical. One more key area here would be to attract the talent in manufacturing. I strongly believe that we as responsible manufacturers need to embrace the new and transform to the latest technologies at hand, be it robotics, 3D printing, advanced analytics, the IoT, the cloud. I think it will be a long journey traveled at high speed with the mileposts of success and speed bumps. But the exciting part is envisioning what Indian manufacturing may look like at the end. For the past 2 decades, I have been personally involved in recruiting young engineers directly from the campuses. And I can already see a major shift in the preferences of engineering students these days. More and more of them are now opting for jobs in the manufacturing sector, the core manufacturing sector, as against the IT and the software sectors, which was in demand maybe a decade back. So the concept of adopting and implementing a smart factory solution can feel complicated, even insurmountable. But thinking big, considering the possibilities, starting small with manageable components and scaling up quickly and gradually to grow the operations, the promise and benefits of the smart factory can be definitely realized. I think, friends, profits will definitely come if we keep up with the times, but it can multiply only if we keep ahead of the time. And friends, I think the onus lies on each one of us to achieve that. Thank you so much, friends, and I'm open to any questions now that could be there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gandhi. You have spelled out stage-wise, or you have covered almost all aspects of the smart manufacturing and how Indian manufacturers should, pursue that. Let me ask you one simple question. When you look at the automotive manufacturing ecosystem, how do you see the progress in the last few years? And do you think there's going to be any major change? And what are those changes going to come up in the current scenario? Do you think it is a trigger for better adaptation of smart manufacturing?
Nabil, let me tell you, I joined as a young graduate engineer in the year 1984. The company had just started that time. And in these 36 years, I have seen so much of change happening. I mean, I remember that as a graduate engineer trainee, we were made to work in the shop floors, each process. I remember working in the weld shop with those huge spot welding guns, very heavy ones, and you have to make spots, welding spots on the body. And today I see welding lines which we have got installed are 100% automated. Even the weld strengths are 100% measured. So see, that is the transition I have seen over the years. Over these 36 years, I have been a witness to this change. And I'm really happy to see this change. But this is definitely, as I mentioned, this is not the end of the road. A lot still needs to be done. And I think the onus is on all of us, because the businesses are becoming complex. And to manage these complexities, it's very important that we use these latest technologies and become smart and smarter. So I definitely see a lot of scope still for improvement in this.
What are the driving force you think should be for the people when they take decision in terms of automizing their processes, in terms of adopting more of IoT or digital technology on manufacturing, or bringing some modern changes on the shop floor? What should be the driver?
Nabil, I think the driver has to be the benefit that someone sees in this whole process. That's something that needs to be explained very properly to people, because
so is it going to be largely profit centric, efficiency centric, or is it going to be making processes easy for the manpower? What should be the ideal scenario? What pays off well in long term in terms of business also?
See, in the long run, we have to see, ultimately the business has to do well and perform. So as I mentioned, that with so much of complexities happening in the shop floor, in the products, in the technologies. I mean, just to give you an example, in 83 we had one model with one variant. Today we have some 18 models with all put together about maybe 2,000 variants. Now, managing that kind of complex business may not be possible by the traditional ways of manufacturing. So definitely this is one big driver. The second big driver is, it's not really convenience of people, but then how to manage these complexities. Second big driver would be, of course, getting more efficiency into our processes. Because if we are able to have well-connected systems, we'll be able to drive more efficiency in our processes. And that ultimately improves your bottom line. So I think these are few things that will really drive this growth. And, at least the major auto OEMs should take up this responsibility to really explain this to the tier 1 and tier 2 vendors. The benefit that lies in it for them, for each one of us. And then, so initially there will be some teething trouble, and, especially existing machines converting into IoT based machines is little tougher. But then if you plan for a new line, we can tailor make it right to take in these new technologies. So,
we have seen whenever we talk about smart manufacturing, we end up talking about automation, we end up talking about IoT. But I think a lot of business strategy or the strategic implementation is also very important. Can you put some light there? What is smart manufacturing beyond automation or implementation of digitization?
See, a lot of things got to do with, for example, the simple thing like predictive maintenance. It's a very simple example, but if we are able to predict through the complete databases that we generate out of these IoT and connected systems, and we are able to predict failures and take care of them beforehand, you can see how much of efficiency improvements that can happen. So even if, suppose we are running today at 95% efficiency levels, even if that 5%, if we are able to improve, you can see the kind of output increase that can happen. So if we are making 2 million vehicles, so it will give us great advantage that way. So these are the benefits that can come. It's small things here. Like gut to logic when I mentioned. I mean, earlier it was all instinct based, but now it is all logic based. When data becomes wisdom, so this wisdom is what helps us improve in all spheres of our operations. So even quality is a major issue which we can improve this way.
We have seen that India has a knack for frugality in terms of automation, in terms of smart manufacturing. Do you see that there is a major breakthrough in terms of frugal engineering on the shop floor? Do you have some case studies to share?
Let me share this with you, because about almost 10-15 years back, we thought that these automations, why can't we do our own low-cost automations in-house by our own people? So we started this new division called Automation Division, whereby we put in some young engineers. Today, there are 50 engineers working in the automation lab, and we are making even 3-axis robots there on our own. The automated guided vehicles we have made on our own. So I think the talent is available. We have to harness that talent, take it to the right direction. And I'm sure we have very smart, intelligent engineers in the country, and we have to just utilize them properly. We can get the results.
One very pertinent aspect to the entire automotive manufacturing ecosystem is that a large number of companies are still small ones, and the capital cost in India is really, really huge. For them to invest in these kind of automation becomes an unsurmountable task. For them, what is your idea? How do they pursue this? How do they adopt to this? Because this looks inevitable. We have to move to smart manufacturing, or we have to move to automation. So what is your message to them?
So as I mentioned, our tier 1, tier 2 vendors, some of them could be very small and may not be in a position to invest. So we have to actually have a buy-in of them, and maybe we have to make small baby steps in that direction. We cannot just, it will be wrong to say that we should change everything at one go. It has to be a step-by-step improvement and finally drive the overall improvement. I think that's the procedure that we should adopt with the small companies, and explain to them the real benefits, that because for a small company, they see what is in it for me ultimately. So that part is something that we have to explain to them.
Do you see some kind of government policy? The government is talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think we have strong advantage of having huge manpower available, skilled manpower also. Many of them are skilled manpower. That is one advantage. Is there any other advantage that you want with government help that we can create in India that could become an India edge when we talk about manufacturing?
Let me give you some example. During this pandemic, we collaborated with a startup company that was just making ventilators, a few numbers per month. So we collaborated. I think our chairman took this initiative that we must collaborate, handhold, and get this company to be making 10,000 per month. And we achieved it within a period of 2 months. But the real challenge, I'll tell you, was that a lot of these small electronic parts that went into that ventilator were imported, and a lot of them from China. And our logistics got completely held up because there was no movement of goods across the borders. So ultimately, I think what I'm driving at is something that finally, if we have to be Atmanirbhar, we have to see, and since Industry 4.0 would involve a lot of electronics going into it, and electronics is an area where we still are importing a lot. And if we have to really drive this whole initiative forward, we must see local availability of these parts. That will bring down costs and it will be easier to implement. But the disadvantage is that electronic parts require huge scales to become profitable. So that's where I think the government should support initially before the volumes pick up and it starts itself. And I think we've taken up with the government on this issue also of localizing the electronic parts becomes one of the biggest challenge for the country today, especially because IoT requires a lot of these parts in the long run.
There's also fear that a lot of workforce will become redundant as we move forward in in Industry 4.0 scenario. What is your thought on that? Are we equipped enough to re-skill people? Because we always felt that there's a skilling gap. So it can emerge as one of the biggest monster to deal with. How do you see industry and government coming together to address this?
Definitely, I think reskilling people to take up different kinds of jobs is something most important. And you would be knowing that Maruti has collaborated with these ITIs. We are hand-holding some of these ITIs, almost 30 of them. And I myself am the management committee chairman of 5 ITIs of Punjab, one in Kerala, where we are actually upskilling them, getting them adapt to the latest technologies at hand, and seeing, for example, if Industry 4.0 has to come in, what are the courses or the course changes that needs to be done at these ITIs so that they were ready to take up this change in the industry.
Which are the functions or discipline you think will become redundant that has been relevant till now in manufacturing as we move to Industry 4.0?
That's a very difficult question because any automation or any Industry 4.0 requires mechanical, requires electronics, requires electrical, requires communication. So I think all these things would definitely be required still. But maybe the skill set needs to be a little upgraded, changed to make it tailor-made for our requirement.
What kind of skill gap you fear that will be looming at the industry in the coming few months? A few years, sorry.
I think skill gap definitely exists today, and that is the reason we are tying up with some of the diploma colleges, the ITI institutes, so that we make them abreast of the latest technologies that are being used in auto companies today. We are even, providing them equipments. We are providing them, cut models of engines, how they work, because we have seen in ITIs they are still working on carburetor-based engines, whereas we have moved into fuel injection long time back. So these are the kind of, upgradations in their curriculum, which is most important, which needs to be taken up. Of course, as industry, we are doing it, but at the government level, this needs to be pushed really fast and hard.
What is the current level of automation that we have in automotive sector compared to the, developed nation like Europe or Japan? And which are the missing weak links that you find here in India, and how can we, pull them out of those weak area and make them strong enough to adopt and be part of this change that is going to take place?
I can very proudly say that our automation levels are almost at par with what is available in Japan. So, for example,
I'm not talking about specific one company. I'm talking about overall automotive.
Overall,
sector.
also, like our weld shops and paint shops are 100% automated. Okay, assembly shops typically world over doesn't have an automation level of more than 10 to 15%, and we are at around that level. So I don't see much of a gap. The only area where there would be a little bit of a gap is the material handling part of it. So suppose the finished panel is coming out of the press, we have 2 people who are putting them into pallets to be transported, whereas maybe in Japan it is automatically the robotized and put in the pallets or the boxes. Because these are some areas where, again, as you said, that we have abundant of cheap labor available. We can still take advantage of this in our country. Maybe going forward, if we have to robotize that area, we can easily do that. That's not the constraint at the moment. So I don't see any major difference as such as the thought process on automation is concerned, because we have also realized that automation has got to do a lot with the quality of the product that we make. And because if there is an automation, there is more consistency in the output. So that's another area that we are working, so that because quality is foremost. Being a Japanese company, quality is the prime most important thing for us.
Quality and consistency, of course. One last and final question: Do you see any surge in investment in terms of when it comes to bringing out automation or bringing out more digitization on the shop floors?
So you want to know if there is any surge in the investments?
Yeah, and how do you see it in future?
We have most of the service providers available in the country today, maybe not to the scale that we would require them in the coming years, but they are all upscaling now. See, all the majors, Mitsubishi's and all these companies who are into IoT, and Siemens, and these are the companies who are driving the IoT in the industry. They are all available here in quite a big way. We are regularly interacting with them, and based on our need, they are upscaling their levels to what we need. So I think that process is on. I don't see any major difficulty in this part of it, at least the service provider part of it. As far as the IT industry is concerned, I think Indian IT industry is one of the best in the world. So I think we have these inherent advantages. We need to just take up and go forward. That's important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gandhi, for joining ETAutoSmartFactory virtual summits, bringing continuity in crisis. I hope the audience had enough to take note and implement them as they move forward to adopt to smart manufacturing or Industry 4.0. Stay tuned to ETAutoSmartFactory virtual summit. There are ample of such sessions coming up. We have splendid list of speakers who are going to be there. Mr. Gandhi is available to take. If you have any question, you can put it in the chat box. We'll be happy to answer them. Thank you so much, Mr. Gandhi, for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nabil. It was a pleasure. Thank you.